Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jared Ballen, a senior strategic communications major with an area of emphasis in psychology from Durham, North Carolina. And Joanne, excuse me, Joanne's going to introduction.
Hi, my name is Njeri. I am a graduating senior strategic communication major from St. Louis, Missouri. And today we're going to be speaking with Dr. Underation, who is the former assistant dean at Scripps Howard School of Journalism. And he's currently now a professor that teaches media law. And I think right now that's all I'm pretty sure that you teach.
Just for now, yeah. Sometimes research too, but so I get into those two fields.
And then I'll
Correct,
let
correct.
Jared tell you briefly about our series.
So for our series, we'll be conducting a series of interviews with different teachers in the Scripps Howard School of Journalism Communications here at Hampton University. And it'll be pertaining to the subject matter of what is it, the importance of developing meaningful relationships and networking with your teachers during your undergraduate years, and the benefits that you receive from doing such, and what it means to you as a teacher, and what it ultimately can mean to students. So, with that being said, first question I would like to pose to you is, how would you describe the phrase "your network is your net worth"? How would you describe that?
Well, one thing that for all of us who work in various facets of communication, one of the things that it took me a while to get to, I always thought, well, I have good skills, so obviously doors are going to open. But that's not always the case. What I found as I got into the field a little bit more, as I got to know people, they would open doors for me and say, you should think about this opportunity, or you should think about going here. So the idea that your net worth is based on your network is positively true. The better you are at networking, the better opportunities you will tend to have, and the more tied in that you'll tend to be with your field. Because without a good network, I think we also all tend to get a little more narrow in focus, just focusing on our job day to day, and sometimes we can lose connection with actually what's going on in the field around us, stuff that we really should know.
Thank you for your
Correct.
answer. So my question would be, what are some ways that a student can begin to build a good relationship with their professor? And are there some do's and some don'ts that you can tell us?
Yeah, so let me start first with the idea about sort of the benefits of building good relationships with your professors. Over the years, what will happen is, there's sort of that odd, sort of like teacher-student dynamic in the beginning, and it's like, we all went to high school and we dealt with teachers, and we're just like, oh man, teachers, who wants to deal with them? But the thing about it is that at the college level, that those attitudes sort of come along, but over time, you'll notice that for professors who I consider to be like called professors, not just people who are doing a job, but people who really do it because they love it, they become more sort of colleagues and mentors to students. And that means as you're beginning, particularly the early stages of your career, professors can be great to bounce ideas off of. So when you get an idea like, here's what I think I would like to do, I would like to maybe go into this field or consider this job, and talk to professors about it and see what they have to say, because if they've been in the field, they certainly have insight. And that's sort of the beginning of building those type of relationships. And really, the thing that I think students should not do is look at your professor as sort of like that stumbling block to your progress. Because it's easy, I think, for sometimes that dynamic to come up because maybe you're like, yeah, I'm an A student, I get A's, but let's say you have that class where you get a B, and it's like, that B is maybe not, in fact, I will say like 100% of the time, not something that's going to hinder you in any way. And maybe that professor did you a favor by sort of pushing you in a slightly different way. So professors aren't really stumbling blocks to progress. So don't think of them that way. The thing that I would hope that more students would do, and I love the students who do it, is they just sort of fall into an easy relationship with a professor. It doesn't have to be anything too important, just like, hey, thinking about this thing, and I was remembering, this time that we talked about this thing in class, and, there's a connection there. And then when you get off into the field and you go into your first job and maybe you stick there for 2 or 3 years, um, it's time to maybe move on. And then you can feel free to reach out, if you've kept some moderate contact with your professors. You can text them, connect to them through social media, and just keep them informed every now and again about what's going on. Because I, for one, love to hear about, what's going on in the lives of my former students. Those messages, I love them every time I get them.
Mm.
And those are just like a couple of things to do. And just remember that at least, and I want to be careful. I know sometimes there are some professors that are just like, I don't want anything to do with that person ever again, and that's just kind of the way it goes, right? Because some folks are not our folks, and some folks are our folks, right? That's just kind of the way it is. So, but for those professors who are your folks, basically, stay in touch with them, and just be in touch. And maybe every now and again, a professor might think of you and say, this would be a job for so and so, or maybe this is something you'd be interested in, and they'll shoot you opportunities that might be something that you would find worthwhile.
I think that's a great answer. Great answer. What does it mean to a teacher when a student genuinely tries to develop a relationship with you?
Well, I for one feel like those students are the ones who really get, like, this is why we're all here, right? Because we're all
Mhm.
not here to get grades. I mean, grades are just kind of useless. They're nice, but in the end, like, no one ever has asked me about like my undergraduate performance in all the years that I've been teaching, and in all of the times that I've been in school, which has been a long time. But the one thing that has been important is those relationships with professors. And it's like, for me, even at my advanced age, I still have some contact with some of my professors. And I'll reach out to them on occasion, when I'm dealing with something. And I love getting their insight. And I know they love hearing from me because of all the stuff that, we went through together, as student teacher back in the day. But to a teacher, when a student comes to them, it's like, you get what we're doing here. We're basically here to help you get a foothold in the field so you can start climbing, because that's really all that we want to do, right? We want to sort of advance and make a life and make a career and enjoy it. And I think professors can help students in the beginning, and then we encourage one another later. You encourage us by coming back to us and letting us know what's going on, and maybe we encourage you by giving you career advice when we can be helpful.
Thank you. I definitely agree. And then, so for the final question that I have to ask, what, well, how does communication impact the relationship? And what are some ways that students can be better at communicating with their professors when building that relationship?
Um, One of the things is, I think, well, there are a couple of different ways this can really happen. There are sometimes just connections that happen, where it's like, I had this professor for a class and they seemed really good. They were fun, I learned, and you make a connection that way. So you maybe get that connection initially out of a classroom experience. I think that's probably the way it happens most of all. Um, and those connections are, sort of student teacher based in the beginning, but after you get out of class, those become more what I call colleague to colleague type discussions. And one of the best ways, I think, to communicate with professors is to, basically remember that they're people like you. Maybe we're a little bit older, of course, but we have the same dreams and hopes and desires. And the one benefit, at least for me, like, there's what I say is, you're helpful to me because you've actually been there already and sort of like gone through all of this beginning phase or mid-career stuff. Like, for me now, I'm sort of like middle career, but some of my teachers I'm still in touch with are, maybe end of career now, and they've been through the hassles and the growth that comes, and just the changes of life that come to, like moving from one part of the country to another, or changing from, say, strategic communication into, something else, which might be, like broadcast or doing your own thing as a career. So those communications, I think, can become more friend and colleague and more, like I have, hey, Dr. Underation, I found this thing and I thought you might be interested in this. Maybe someone shoots me an article, love that stuff, and I read it. And that's, I think, a way that student communication can be more equivalent because after you're out of class and especially after you've graduated, what I tell students is stop calling me Dr. Underation now. You don't have to. I'm Chris and you're a colleague, so call me that if you want. And that's a thing because at that point, basically we're both on the same path. It's just that I'm older, so I was there first.
Well, thank you. So just to recap, everything you said, I definitely agree. And I wanted to share with our audience why I wanted to choose you to speak with you. You're actually one of my favorite professors. I think I've already told you this. The reason why is because you're very like fair. So it's like if I do the work and I do the work good, I know I'm going to get a good grade. If I don't do the work or if I kind of like slack off, then I know I'm going to get a slack off grade. But in addition to that, I first built a relationship with Dr. Underation when I first got to campus. So I was a transfer student, went to his office and I was like, hey, I have my associate's degree. Everyone's telling me that I'm going to be here for 3 years. I can't be here for 3 years. I need to be here for 2. And I went to his office like all the time. Yeah, I mean, I would wait in line because there'd be like a line to go to his office. So I'd wait in line for like 40 minutes, go back like, hey, it's me again. Yeah. So remember how you said that you're going to help me? Like, come on, let's do it. And so that was how the relationship formed. And then after that, I had him in class and I just made sure that I showed him in class, like I care about my grades. So like if there are things going on in my life, like right now, if something was going on and we had an assignment due in 3 weeks, I'd text him right now, like, hey, Dr. Underation, I know that the assignment's due 3 weeks from now, but right now I have a lot going on. Can you give me an extension? And that's showing like, hey, okay, it's not even, because it's not a day before, it's not a week before, it's 3 weeks before. So I'm already showing that I know right now I'm overwhelmed and I'm asking you prior. And so this relationship has helped me in so many ways because one, I have Dr. Underation on my resume. So it's like, former assistant dean and professor, and the doctor part is just like wow. And then two, I'm a graduating senior and I needed to take media research and had asked Dr. Underation if he was going to teach it in the summer, and he said he probably wasn't. So because of that, he reached out to Dr. DeBerry and was like, hey, I have a student who really needs to take this class. So after all those connects and talking to my assistant dean, they actually added a different class, media research, and I was able to get into that. And I was all because of talking to Dr. Underation and having that relationship. So now I'm actually going to graduate when I want to graduate, and all of that's literally just from that first day of meeting him and then staying in touch. And then now he's helping me with my senior capstone project. So like that's how the relationship goes that far, and just staying in touch. And this doesn't mean that I only talk to him like out of school. Even like winter break, I'm like, hey, how was your break? How's everything going? Just like shoot that text to show that you care, because you don't want it to be, oh yeah, okay, I'll hit you up when I need something, or I need you to read this. Like it's like build an actual genuine relationship. But that's like a little bit of my story. So Jared's going to share his story now.
Yes, that definitely. I definitely agree with that. I think that is a great story, Joanne, a great story to show that when you go that extra mile, when it is genuine, when you don't make it about business, when you don't make it seem as though that you want something from that individual, or as you said before, you just need something. That's the only time someone will hear from you. It makes it much more worthwhile. It makes it easier, and it makes when business is involved, it makes it easier to conduct that business because there's now that foundation of relationship that you have built. And this is just a little side story, not quite the same, but it's a little story that just I think about Dr. Underation. I remember there was an assignment that I did not complete, something I did not do, and I remember I came to you. I remember I came to you about it, and just how fair you were. And I couldn't even be mad about it because you're just so fair. You let me know the rules. You told me where the stuff were. You said this in the syllabus, and I couldn't be mad at that. And I think my respect heightened so much for you because of how fair you were. And you didn't show any favoritism because I came to you about this situation. So with that being said, that just makes it so much more worthwhile to me. And I'm glad that you could be on here because of the type of individual and type of teacher that you are. And collectively, I think as students and scripts, we can attest to that. And, we view you as that type of individual. So I
Yeah.
just want to thank you for being on here and taking your time out.